Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and then enter into his glory? Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them the things about himself in all the scriptures. Sounds a bit like the beginning of the service, doesn't it? We go through the prayers, we read the scripture passages, we have the homily, the liturgy of the word. So what do you think they were talking about? Do you think that they answered Jesus? What were they asking themselves about this person who was talking with them? How do you prepare yourself for your altar guild journey, your time of preparing the altar, not only for yourself and for the church, but as a way to honor God? How do you prepare for that? As they came nearer to the village to which they were going, he walked ahead as if he were going on. But they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it is almost evening, and the day is now nearly over." So he went to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road and while he was opening the scriptures to us?" You find your hearts burning within you. Also, I find something interesting in this description. It's Cleopas and his friends who asked Jesus to join them at the table. Usually it's in the stories in the Gospels, it's usually Jesus who asks people to join him at the table. So they are opening up to welcoming and inviting people to come and share with them. They may not have had much to have. They had bread, maybe some wine, and didn't have much to share, but they were willing to share it with this person who had taken the time to walk with them all the way from Jerusalem to Emmaus. Do you sometimes feel that way too? That when you are at the table, that you are inviting, as you're setting up, you're inviting people to come and join you at the table? The priest does that. The whole service does that. So this is asking us to do it. That same hour, they got up and returned to Jerusalem, and they found the 11 and their companions gathered together. They were saying, "The Lord has risen indeed, and he has appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road and how he had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread. That experience we know in the service. And then we as members of the Altar Guild have another part of the service that everybody's off drinking coffee and we're doing this work again behind the scenes. We're cleaning up, we're clearing up, we're doing the housekeeping, yes, but we're also taking these holy vessels and any leftover elements and disposing of them in a holy and thoughtful way. So again, the story of Emmaus can be divided into three parts, I think. The walk and discussion with the stranger, the liturgy of the word, the meal and the breaking of the bread, the liturgy of the table. And then the revelation of the presence of Jesus in the fulfillment of the scriptures. That's where you are sharing the good news with the rest of the world. So you may think of it as just being housekeeping, but I think of it as much more of a journey and how you prepare yourself for this journey every time you prepare for a service. We are in a church that was actually an Army chapel and was built in 1941 at Camp Roberts, just north of Paso Robles, here on the central coast of California. And the thousands of soldiers that worshiped in this building before they went off to World War II or to Korea or to Vietnam, the clouds of witnesses that are with us. So every time we prepare for the service, we're preparing not just for the people who are in the church with us, who are coming to this table, but to everyone who has come to the table for generations, for over 2,000 years. And one of the things about theological reflection, and maybe you can think about this, is it's knowing God and knowing about God through our own experience. So this is why I'm asking you to consider, what is your spiritual experience, your theological experience that you have when you're starting to prepare for the altar guild work, for the Eucharist? Your theological reflections, as we talk about them in EFM, is to encourage us to make links between God's story and our own story. How do you do that on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday service, or for Good Friday, or for Christmas, or for the Easter Vigil? And how do you connect the past with the present? It helps us relate our lives to those of earlier people who, like us, are part of the family of God. So Altar Guild is very, very important, I feel, because it connects tradition and culture. And as it becomes more systematic and consistent for you, you find ways to apply your faith in the world as Christ's ministers. This is a ministry of the very deepest kind. You've been to a play and you know it's the backstage crew that keeps things running along. You're kind of the backstage crew, but I think you're much more than that. I think of myself as much more than that. I'm a part of this wonderful tradition, over 2,000 years worth of tradition, all over the world, where people take this very simple act of sharing the bread and wine and making it their own and coming closer to God and to Christ's sacrifice. Now, I was wondering if any of you have any practices that you'd like to share with us that you do before you begin your Altar Guild work. You can raise your hand and we can call on you, and if you're willing to share, I know people would really appreciate that. Don't be afraid, come on. Somebody's raising their hand, I can see it. You need to raise your hand and
I think I see it. David's iPad, I think, whoever is, are you trying to raise your hand? Yes, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Would you like to share?
Let's see.
Right?
There you go.
Okay. I thought two things that you said were interesting to me because somewhere along the line, I've been in Altar Guild for about 40 years. And when I go to prepare the table, I prepare it as though it was actually Jesus' table. I mean, this is a very meaningful thing to me. And so I don't even think about it anymore, really, but what you had said brought it to mind that, we consider it a ministry in our church, which is very fortunate. but it's a very sacred ministry to us. And that's the way I prepare. I think of Jesus and his followers around the table and what went before it and what came after it. But it just passes through my mind and I don't think about it anymore. And the other thing that you mentioned was the connection with past believers. And I was setting the table one Sunday and I was thinking about how old the Altar Guild was. But then I started to think about all of the people all of the Christians who've gone before us. And I visualized it as a Japanese rain chain. If you know what a Japanese rain chain is. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a chain that hangs down and the water from the rain kind of filters through it and all the way down. Mm-hmm. And I thought that's the way the belief system that we hold so dear has acted throughout the centuries. Mm-hmm. And I really still have that impression in my mind and in my heart. And I just thought I would share it.
Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome.
I think my background is history, and so I'm constantly aware that I'm part of a chain, as you describe it, that's gone on for so long, and I've just another link in it, and I'm connected to those who came before me, and I'll be connected to those after me. Right. So it's really a continuity that keeps going, and that's the whole point of the church. We each teach each other, don't we? Mm-hmm. We're there for each other. So anybody have anything else that they'd like to share about what they think about or how they prepare for their ministry of the Altar Guild?
I would, Lisa. This is Sarah Cheslow. Just listening to you reminds me that in the morning when I set up, we at St. Benedict's, we set up on Sunday morning. I know a lot of you set up on Saturday evening, but it reminds me that I need to slow down. We have Altar Guild prayers on our Altar Guild closet that are right there, and I don't read them. I mean, I just run in and unlock the cabinet, start to set up, and really am not present in what I am doing. And so thank you for reminding us that it is more than just setting the table and then cleaning up the dishes afterwards, and that we need to be more present in what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes. We have a hand from Nicole.
Yes, I see some hands. Terrific.
I at my church, there was a husband and wife who used to come on Saturday when the Altar Guild was setting up, and Susie, they were older, and Susie would walk the pews and just pick up papers and straighten out the Bibles and the prayer books, and Bill would sit in the front pew and just pray for the Sunday service. Mm-hmm. And they just did this so quietly and beautifully. They were very faithful, longtime parishioners, and they both died of natural causes within, months of each other. And I was fairly new to the Altar Guild when they died, and I started to feel the sort of their spirit in me when I would go to do the setup on Saturday. And so we have a little team, and sometimes the team was so competent, they would do the setup, and I started just walking the pews and straightening up the Bibles and picking up the papers, just like Susie did. And so I feel like it, helps me slow down and puts me in a meditative place of like, this is a beautiful, quiet space where no parishioners are right now, but tomorrow is going to be filled with people. And I hope it's as peaceful tomorrow for everyone as it is on Saturday afternoon. So that's my own personal little way of preparing.
And it's one that connects with those who've come before you.
True.
And they're part of your clouds of witnesses, aren't they? Okay. Somebody else?
Yes, the next one is
Okay.
Happy Scanlon Moore.
Who is it?
Yes, go ahead. The next
Yes.
is Happy Scanlon Moore.
Right there. Okay, now you're unmuted.
Okay, and we have a little group here today, so Georgia Schultz was going to say something.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your message to us today. Our church was built in the late 1800s, and so I am very aware of all of the different, not only parishioners, but different denominations that have shared in our church over the years. And in those quiet moments of either before or after preparing the altar, I try to take some time just to kneel and to feel those people around me and to celebrate all that they have brought to this church and all that they have brought to so many thousands of people that their lives touched.
Mhm.
When someone was just figuring out that in the years that our church has been open, it has served nearly 7,000 Sundays. So that's 2 services per Sunday and Wednesday services and Holy Week. And it just gives you an idea of how vital this ministry is and how many lives we touch in the past and present and future.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
1 or 2 more people here.
Okay.
I'm Jan. What the altar guild duty for me is the practice of the presence of God. There is a treatise written by a medieval monk, Brother Lawrence, of how what you do it with the idea that you want to please God with whatever it is you're doing. And that's what the altar guild duty is to me. And it isn't so much trying to get my mind right or trying to get myself into a zone, but to just just concentrate on the fact that what I'm doing, I want it to please God.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Well, thank you. Where are you from?
Where are we from?
Yes.
This is Vista, California. We have
Oh,
Grace Episcopal Church
In
San Marcos,
in San Marcos. Sorry, my home is in Vista.
okay. All right.
Diocese of San Diego.
I know where it is. My grandfather had a ranch near Bonsall.
In
I
fact,
grew up there. Yes.
I'm in the county of San Diego, not even Vista. It's a finger of Bonsall that Vista hasn't incorporated yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I remember when that was back in the hinterlands. There was nothing there. But I think what we're asking you to do is to consider, or what I'm asking you to do, is to consider how your ministry reflects your own life and how it also reflects your relationship with God and your relationship with your congregation, your relationship with those who came before you, as well as your relationship with those who will come after you. And one of the greatest things I think what I do, hopefully, is training people coming along after me so that they can understand the importance and the loveliness and the beauty of the process. It isn't just washing dishes. It's so much more than that. And you get to see in the service, the things that you've so carefully taken care of, used at the altar and used to share the bread and wine, and the congregation, and how appreciative they are of that. And every single person you touch, because what you've touched, they touch also. I mean, that's a huge web. So you're really in the middle of so much of it. And whether you're in a huge cathedral where they do all kinds of fancy things, or just a very simple presentation, it doesn't matter. It's what comes before it and why you're doing it. So I think one of the things we often forget is, how do we take what we've done that day, and what are your thoughts when you conclude your work for when after the service? As I said, when no one notices what you're doing. Do you have a ritual there as well? And if you do, can you share that? You have something anybody does? I know it's more than just cleaning up.
Yes, go ahead, folks from the Navajo
Yeah.
end.
Okay.
Hello. Yeah. Hey, let me adjust the camera here a little bit. We have several of our members of the church here. We're from the Good Shepherd Mission, Fort Defiance, Arizona, part of the Navajo Land Area Mission. One of the comments I wanted to say about the setting up and breaking down and even having a ritualistic place that seems familiar for a lot of our Navajo people. There are many summer ceremonies in the tradition that I've seen in my years of growing up with my father and with my grandfather and relatives that have sacred space like this, and they have sacred tools and elements that are used for prayer, much like we do the gifts and the stack that we have here. And so setting up, it reminds me of respecting that space, respecting that there is a holy thing happen here. There is a something that we are beyond our fathom that is holy and respectful there. And so I think that when I say that, it's a generational thing. You know, I have my kids here. My daughters were all grown up in a church, and they all took part in seeing me set up and being part of a ritualistic process. And so I think generationally, they see that in their eyes, and I bring them here today because I wanted them to hear perspectives from the wider church, because here in Navajo land, we get so isolated, and we do things in the Anglican tradition, yet we do it in our own tradition as well. But it's hard to showcase that as being connected to what the wider church is doing. And so having them see all of you here and having them see this process in the same manner that we do it here, I'm hoping that is affirming them that this is something that they're a part of a wider group. And like you say, generationally, you're setting this up for the prayers and the circles of those that have passed and before you. You know, that is very much the theology of the Navajo immersion story, is that we use new processes of formation coming through to a full end in a circle. And the same things happen with my kids. They're seeing that formation take place. And so in general, I just wanted to comment about the generational ties that is happening with my kids and with the people that are here. And I think we as Navajo are ritualistic as it is. And so we resonate with what's happening at a holy space and respect it more often. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We do have ritualistic practices, but our hearts are burning while we do them, as we think about what they represent, who they connect us with, how they connect us with God and the word of the scripture. So I know when I leave on Sunday after cleaning up, after putting things away and knowing everything is in the right place and all of that, I say, my golly, I've made it through another day. But just think how many lives we've touched and how I'm part of a tradition that is over 2,000 years. And I think we should be very humbled by that fact that we are part of that 2,000-year tradition, more than 2,000 years now. So if anybody has anything else they'd like to add, I think this is maybe where we end. But I'd like to ask you tomorrow, if you're setting up tomorrow or setting up tonight, how do you prepare for setting it up? How do you prepare yourself before you arrive and when you arrive? Are you thinking about those who've been here before you? Are you sharing with them? And then do you share the good news of your ministry and your scripture when you leave? Sharing the good news like Cleopas and his friends did when they went back to Jerusalem. Amen.
Thank you, Lisa. I've got to especially thank Lisa because she prepares taxes, and as everybody knows, this is tax season, and so she took time out of her very busy schedule to do this for us. So thank you very much, Lisa. And I just wanted to share something actually that Lisa sent to me, and it's written by somebody from Baton Rouge, St. James Episcopal Church. But there's a quote in it by John Lennon, you know, the Beatle, John Lennon. It says, "When you do something beautiful and nobody noticed, do not be sad, for the sun every morning is a beautiful spectacle, and yet most of the audience still sleeps." So anyway, so now we're going to move on to the next part of our seminar, and we're going to hear from Laura Leonard. And she's not with us here physically, but she's up in Paso Robles at St. James Church, which is just north of here, north of San Luis Obispo. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura. And does everybody know about turning your screen on in the upper right-hand corner where it says view? You can push a speaker, and that will make the speaker, the screen turn bigger, because I'm really concerned about this, because what Laura is going to do is a demonstration of floral arranging. And so I think it's very important that you see in full view what she's doing.
Yes, I should start by unmuting. Jen, should I be doing something?
Let's see if I can.
Oh, right. We talked about pinning yesterday.
Yeah. Yes, I've been pinning the videos for folks.
Oh.
I can't.
On speaker view, when the person speaks, we're able to see them. I see Laura ready to begin.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just go ahead and start then. Thanks, Carol. One of our trusty Altar Guild people at Paso Robles. Thank you. Sarah already did a little bit of introduction. I am attending at St. James Episcopal Church in Paso Robles. It was easier for me to do my work here today for you in my own space rather than trying to gather things, and even though it's not far, to get down to St. Benedict's. So I want to welcome everyone this afternoon and for taking your time out of your day and your time to set up for Altar Guild to be here. I've been on Altar Guild for the time I've been at St. James, which is about over 25 years. And right here at St. James, we currently have 3 teams on for our Altar Guild. And there are 2 people on those teams who do the flowers, myself and another person. And in my other life, I was an elementary school teacher in San Miguel, which is north of Paso Robles, and retired in 2017 after 21 years of teaching. At the interim after I retired, I went to flower school. I had been doing flowers for the church, but went to be officially trained and did that up in Portland in 2017. I'm going to give you my email address. I'll type it in the chat. And that way, if you have questions when we're done and you don't have time to ask them, you can email me. And if I don't know the answer, I can surely try to find that for you. Just by the show of hands, how many of you already do flowers at your parish? You see many hands, Jan? Awesome. The next question is how many of you feel you do flowers, but not quite to the level that you'd like to do them?
There are some hands.
Okay, thank you. Well, I hope that what I bring to you today you'll be able to use right away at your parish. And I thought this afternoon, before I get into the flowers, we talk a little bit about the colors and the seasons. And the church year starts with Advent, of course, and the color purple. And in some parishes like ours, we have gone to using blue during Advent. And the flowers during Advent, we, again, at our parish, use greens only. We don't actually do flowers until we actually get to Christmas. And Christmas is, of course, white. And after Christmas, the season of Epiphany is green. And when I do flowers, we deal with a local florist here in Paso Robles and have forever that I can remember. And I try to recommend to people who are donating flowers to just limit only colors, not specific flowers. And that way we can get the most flowers, the biggest bang for our buck when we get the flowers. So that's what I usually recommend when ordering flowers for people. And during Epiphany, the green seasons, we use any flowers, any colors, and then greens, of course. During Lent, you can see that we're purple. Our crosses are covered in purple. And of course, all the pyramids are purple as well. And when I get finished with the flowers today, I will be dismantling them and giving them to people. So they'll be put to good use since they won't be on the altar tomorrow. We also have taken out our candelabras. And so it's very stark in the church. Do people have things that they do at their parish, especially during Lent, that they'd like to share? Jane, it looks like I see your hand. Did you have something to share? Oh, cool. Meg says that they use pussy willows on the altar for Lent. That brings back memories of pussy willow trees in my grandmother's backyard. I remember always being fascinated with how beautiful they are. Any other things?
Sarah also has her hand up.
Right, I think Jane Pomeroy was next,
Oh,
but she's on mute, I believe.
Yeah,
There we go.
I just wanted to know, one year we thought we'd take branches we cut outside that were bare and put on the altar. And it looked very nice, but as Lent progressed, we got leaves.
Oh, because the church was warm.
Yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
it doesn't completely work for dry, but we use curly willow a lot.
Oh, that's beautiful
Right,
too.
curly willow.
That's a great idea. Great idea. Thank you. Sarah, did you have something, did you say?
I do. We didn't do it this year, but in previous years, the director of the Flower Guild has used succulents with rocks, and that's just like very simple and easy to maintain throughout Lent.
Succulents is a good idea. I know it's something that we've used here when it's been hot in Paso. It's something that even in the summer is something you could use on the altar as well, succulents. Yeah, great idea. Thank you. Anyone else?
looks like Sandy
Mhm.
has her hand up.
Yes, we usually have a cactus. We're in the desert. And last year, instead of a cactus, we had just an array on the whole table of just items like a turned over vase and some cactus, not cactus per se, but I want to say sticks, but you know, things like just one kind of piece of grass type thing. And the whole thing created like a desert view. And it was very, it made you really think of Jesus in the desert during the 40 days of Lent, you know, I mean, it was really powerful.
Yeah, I bet it was a very unique too looking, and
Yes,
as
yes.
people would come into the church, they could get a feeling of the season.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
So after Lent, you know, the color, as we talked about, the color is purple, and Easter and weddings and funerals and Christmas are all white. And depending on, we here at St. James do all white unless Mother Barbara has something else she'd like to include, a little bit of color. I know at Easter time, we usually do white with some pastel flowers, and but mostly whites. And then we have Holy Week, and a lot of different parishes do different things during Holy Week, especially with the veilings of things. We change our veiling from purple to red to black, depending on the day of in the week, starting with Palm Sunday. We have a tradition here at St. James. On Palm Sunday, we have a procession from our main park downtown, and with our neighbor church Plymouth, we process from our park with accompanied by a bagpiper from our area. So we march from and carry our big church banner, and we're in our regalia, so to speak, in the colors that we would wear. So that's a visible thing out in the community for Palm Sunday. And then through the week during Holy Week, again, there would be no flowers on the altar for us. And I love some of these great ideas for things to use in place of flowers. I really appreciate all of that. Pentecost with red and yellow and orange anything bright and fiery. And then, of course, after Pentecost, we have the long time of ordinary time with greens and lots of greens. Is there anything anyone else at this point would like to share in regards to colors? Oh, great comment, a flowering cross. So that is something we do as well here. We had someone build a wooden cross and they covered it, it's white, and it covered it with chicken wire. And we fill it in on Easter. And that has become, I try to kind of put some silks in to kind of get people going. So it's not really bare when it comes, but that's a cool idea. I love flowering crosses.
There's a hand raised. Go ahead.
Happy Scallion Moore.
We have a tradition of doing a ring of fire, doing a wreath that we put up.
Wow.
And we start with yellow at the bottom part and start it to go around to full red.
Oh my gosh.
And then another time we have taken 2 singular vases, brass, up higher, that's in front of the altar, and then up on the shelf below the cross we put 2 individual brass vases, and we do that in the flame color too, going up in a triangle. Here.
And then afterwards, we put it on our, where we have ashes buried outside our church. And so it goes out, this is when it's outside afterwards, but then we let it die naturally at our little gravesite there.
Beautiful, thank you. I'm coming up with all kinds of good ideas for the future, thank you. All right, well, next, what I'd like to do is kind of talk about tools of the trade. I'm sure a lot of people know about a lot of these things, but I thought I would go over maybe something that might be a little bit different. Of course, you always want a nice pair of shears that are good and sharp. And one tool that I was trained to use when I was at flower school is a knife. And you can use it in lieu of a shear, but the thing you want to be sure of is that your knife is sharp. So I always have a sharpener in the drawer in our sacristy. And as far as some products that we use a lot here, the first one I was going to share with you is Green Glow. I know it's backwards. It is what they call a plant polish that we spray on the greens to help keep the moisture in the greens. And if you use it, some of your greens will last for weeks, literally. And another product that I use with hydrangeas and roses is a product called Quick Dip. Sorry. And it comes in a smaller container as well as this larger one. And it is used on hydrangeas and roses. When you cut them, you dip it into the Quick Dip, and it's a super hydrator. So it sucks up the water and maintains the water longer for those 2 flowers. And you want to remember too to cut your stems at an angle and not straight across. That way the flowers have a way to get the water up. If it's flat, it's sitting flat either on the bottom of your vase, or it just doesn't soak up the water quite as well. Oasis is the floral foam, and I would recommend, I know this is more expensive than the other foams, but I've tried some of the other foams, and it's kind of like that saying, you get what you pay for. As far as foam, the cheaper ones, they don't hold the water, they break apart when you try to put the stems in. So I would recommend the Oasis floral foam. And if you're not using foam, this is again a trick maybe a lot of you know. It's gridding, tape gridding that you can do in vases. And this particular vase is just a hashtag or a pound sign. And then you wrap the tape around the edge to secure it. And then you have kind of a space to put your stems, and they don't move around as it would in an open vase. And when I'm dipping the flowers, I put the quick dip just in a little cup and just dip them in there. Anything that people use as far as tools that you'd like to share?
Laura, there was a question about
Yes.
the Oasis.
Yes.
I forget who asked it, but they said, can Oasis be reused?
Good question. Oh, I'm so glad somebody asked that. Yes and no is the answer. If you keep it in water soaking, it can be. But once it's been used like in an arrangement, it's best to discard it because the flowers are just not going to hold in it. But I know what I try to do is make sure I only get wet what I think I'm going to use. But like today, I had a small piece that I put in a vase in case we need it. And if it stays in water, you can use that. But if you try to use it and rehydrate it, it just doesn't work. Rehydrating the Oasis doesn't work. Other questions or comments?
There's a question from Sandy, and then there's another question from the chat.
Perfect. Awesome. Great.
I've heard actually from the florist, although he can just continue to use them, but when you stick the stem into the Oasis, the pressure causes it to plug, like, you know, the area of the stem that you've cut, so that it can't drink at least as well as it could otherwise.
That's true. It's not going to drink as well in Oasis as it does in water. That's very true. So if you're able to use, you know, a vase that just contains water, that's great. And it, like one of the vases I was going to share with you is this tall one, and I would normally just fill it with water and grid the top. So that's a good question or good comment. Yes, it won't, because that exactly is what happens. You push it in and it will pick up those particles from the Oasis. And another thing about the Oasis, when you are soaking it, you want to be sure you don't press it down into the water, because what you're doing is putting air into those holes. And so you just want it to put water in there, let it set, let it absorb without putting any pressure on it. So it's all water that's going in there, not just air. Thank you. Is there another question, Jen?
Yes, someone had asked if anyone used frogs anymore, and then a request to show the plant spray again.
Oh, yep. I don't use frogs, but I mean, I have some, but I don't use them. Anyone else use frogs?
Oh, sorry. Someone asked a question about what is frogs, or what are frogs?
Frogs are different sizes of metal rings that it looks like a torture of some kind. It's a bunch of pins that are metal sticking up, and you would stick the flowers down in among the pins. I know when my mom used to do flowers, or get flowers, they used to have frogs in them. And it was a way of anchoring the flowers. And here's the green glow. It's plant polish. And you can get it on Amazon, and I usually buy like 3 cans at a time when I order it for the church. Other questions?
I saw a comment. Sorry, my battery went dead, and so I missed some of the conversation. But I'm back on now. I saw a comment that said they don't use Oasis because it's bad for the environment. I had not heard that before.
True. It is not something that's going to decompose very well.
Oh, okay.
There are some out there that are better, but it's not great for the environment.
One of the things that I do, even though now I know Oasis is not good for the environment, so thank you for whoever made that comment, because I think it's good to know, is the little floral packages that come with flowers. When you buy a bunch of flowers and you get a little floral package, I put those in the water that I soak the Oasis in, and I find that helps.
Very, very good suggestion. Another thing, you can also buy that same flower food in a liquid form. And it has like a squirter at the top, and you can use the same, does the same thing, only you don't have to dissolve the granulars. So there's products like that as well. So perfect.
We have a hand from
All
Fiona.
right, awesome.
Okay, my question is, we don't have anyone at our church who actually does the flower arranging, and so we have to have someone else, and we pay for them. How much do flowers normally cost per week? And is there, it's like, if you do them yourself, what is the cost? Because up in Flagstaff, where there isn't anything, everything costs a fortune. And so it's just a horrendous amount of money going to flowers, unfortunately. So
That's a really good question too, because I'm really cognizant of cost. And this is something I was going to talk about later, but this is a perfect segue. We have a flower chart in our narthex that people can sign up for flowers. And what we recommend here is, for where we are, $65 a Sunday, and more than one person can donate. So you might have 2 or 3, so it makes it more reasonable for people. And the other thing, I'm sure you probably have the same issue there, is the heat. And I know that, no, not even in the summer.
We've got 12 feet of snow right now.
My gosh, and I'm complaining about 40 degrees here. So anyway, so what I noticed this week, I was looking at the National Altar Guild book, and I was looking at the flower section, and I have never seen it before, that you're supposed to use live flowers in the church. And again, being responsible, it can be over 100 degrees here in the summer, and our back wall here is just a heat magnet. And so what I started doing, and I'll share one of them with you, is I put together some silk arrangements to use when either someone hasn't donated flowers for a particular Sunday, or it's a Sunday in the summer, because I hate to have people spend 20, 30, 60, whatever amount of money, have them done on the altar, even though they might be taken and given to someone else, to have it almost wasted because of the heat. Because we try to keep them on the altar for service on Wednesday, but sometimes even though we move them in a cold spot, and so it kind of depends on the area you're in as far as the cost. I know the shop that I worked with and the shop we get our flowers from, like everything else, flowers have gone up. We're very fortunate, I think, blessed here with the people we work with, because the owner of the shop we get our flowers knows that I love flowers. And so, like today, she said, when I picked up the flowers for this demonstration, she said, I figured you'd want open lilies versus ones that were closed. And so these are, I've got 4 stems of beautiful open lilies that, they'll be great for the church. So she's very generous. So if you've got a relationship, I know we sometimes do have to have her make the arrangements because, no one is able to do for a particular Sunday. So we have done that in the past as well. I know some churches have people in their congregation where they have flowers, at least in seasons, in their yards that they bring and donate for flowers for the altar space. So I've got all kinds of comments. I'm so glad to see people. Let me show you this so I don't forget. So this would be one of the pieces. And I have two of them. And so that's, again, I try to be responsible with people's money. And people too don't realize that when you're on Altar Guild, your expenses when you ask for donations aren't just for the flowers. You've got wine and you've got bread and you've got all these other things that need to be purchased in order for you to set the table and do the work you have to do. So anyway, does that help? I know it's a challenge. It definitely is a challenge. Thank you for asking. Any other questions at this point? Well, the next thing I was going to talk about was containers and vases. And
There is a hand
Oh, I'm sorry.
from Judith.
I don't use flowers all the time. Sometimes I just do composition. I don't know if you can see this. This is what I have in my altar area right now.
Okay. Wow.
And I have to do two of them. We've got two niches behind the altar, and I do things like that. And I'm going to leave that up all of Lent, and so there's no expense.
Right.
There are things I had.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Another alternative. I'm loving that.
What was Martha? There's another hand from Martha.
Thank you. Laura, I would like to address people that have allergies to flowers and to greenery. I've been a florist for years doing some of the churches in Los Angeles, and some of the clergy have allergies. And the biggest one was we used to do a greening of real Christmas trees, and then we had to go to fake trimming and so forth. The other thing is about lilies. They're very fragrant. And so I know how beautiful they are at Easter, but it's something to consider when people are doing the flowers about people that have allergies to certain very fragrant but beautiful flowers.
No, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. I know that I'm not a big fan of Easter lilies as they exist. But I know one of our deacons is very allergic. And so we try not to, if nothing else, if we have to have them away from where she is. I know we had a priest, an interim priest who was very allergic, and there were just no lilies. That was just it. There were no lilies. And I know in certain, when we would deliver flowers to one of the hospitals, not a hospital, sorry, one of the care facilities, there was never any lilies or anything that would be damaging if someone would eat them, because sometimes if it was going to a dementia ward, for instance, that might happen. So we had to be careful with that as well. So that's a very good point, to be cognizant of those situations at your parish, for sure. Thank you. Good point.
Question from Sandy.
Yeah, I had a question about the allergy. I've heard that when you take out the yellow little pollen things from inside the lilies, that then there's no allergies, that the allergy comes from that. Is that true or not?
I think it has some validity. We these are already done, but yes, we always pull the off so they're not. And the thing is too, not only for the allergy part, but they also stain really badly. And so if you get it on anything, it's almost impossible to get that stain out. So yeah, that's one way to not eliminate it, but probably help it for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to some containers. Again, I showed you this one white container. I have 2 tall containers like this one, and then the small square, and I do them in a trio on the altar. This is a fairly new vase container. It looks like it's concrete, and I have 2 lengths. And the thing that's nice about this particular one is it's fairly narrow, so it doesn't take a lot to make a beautiful piece because it's not very wide. Move that. And this is the one I'm going to use today. It's actually a ceramic vase, but we have a couple of brass vases, but they have gotten so deteriorated over time, and no amount of polishing makes them look presentable. So I was able to find some ceramic ones, and they came in a group of 6, which makes it nice because you can add, if you have a bigger piece you want to do, you can add them and snug them up to each other, and it looks like you have one continuous vase rather than a bunch of little ones. So, let's see.
Laura, there's a hand up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Tita.
Thanks. Just to swing back momentarily, as I understand, the stargazer lily is the only one with fragrance that could cause discomfort for people who are allergic to or sensitive to fragrances. If I'm not mistaken, stargazer is the only one that does. Is that correct?
I'm not sure about that one only. There are 2 main types of lilies. There's the Asiatic lilies, which is a smaller, more delicate looking lily. And then there's the Oriental lilies, which is the bigger, and stargazer would be in that. And they do, Orientals do have a fragrance to them.
As well. Okay, thank you. And then the other question is, are there not what's called oases, or like what's called frogs, are they not also available in mesh, like chicken wire, but put into small little, that fit inside of vases that can be sterilized, like the stones, the glass stones can be to hold flowers?
That is absolutely a possibility. That's what they used at the flower school I went to in Portland. Is they would take like a chicken wire that's coated and make it into and fit it into whatever container you were using, and it would act as a gridding situation. Absolutely, that
Yes,
absolutely would work.
And even the use of what they call that you put in gutters to keep leaves from going down the drains. Those too
interesting.
Can be, because they have the spaces that are large enough for many stems, so that's a possibility too.
Absolutely. What a great idea. Oh my gosh. I'm learning as much as I'm teaching today. Thank you.
Most informative. Thank you.
Anyone else?
There was a question about where you found these great containers.
Oh, I am a scrounger. I am a sale buyer. This particular one, the gold one, I found just online, Amazon, and I go to Michael's when they have their really 70% off, and I look for containers there. If I'm at one of the thrift stores, I'll look for containers there. I just kind of scrounge around. And I try to, when I send flowers home, especially if it's in a container that we use on the altar, I just remind folks that when you're done enjoying the flowers, if you would just return the container, I would really appreciate it, because some of them have a tendency to disappear, as you probably know. But yeah, I just kind of look around, hunt sales. That's a good question. All right, well, I'm going to start doing some things here. I think I have everything pretty well prepped up. I was gonna go ahead and green this vase, and I thought, no, I would. And if you have questions as I go along, please ask. As I said, I usually use three types of greens. These have all been sprayed. I sprayed all of these prior to our time today. And so they have the green glow already on them. And as I said earlier too, I tried to use 3 different types of greens just to kind of give it some depth as you're doing things. And when people were talking earlier with what Lisa was saying, for me, this is my kind of Zen preparing place. I'm usually doing the flowers when everybody else has got all the other setup done. And I'm just here either in the sanctuary or in the sacristy, just quietly doing flowers. And every week is a different week because I never know what I'm going to pick up. So like when I picked up the flowers last night, I came in this morning earlier and said, okay, well, this is what I'm going to try to do today. So that makes it interesting as well. It's not like you're doing a blanket type situation. Everything looks like it came out of a catalog or telefloral or something. So again, just kind of, I usually start with the huck and using my knife for that usually, and then coming back with the other greens to kind of fill it in, either in front of or back behind. Looks like somebody's coming to the church. I don't know what they're coming for because there's nobody here but me. Anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And
So there is a question in the chat.
Okay.
How do you find your greens? Do you purchase them or get them from your yard or neighbor's plants?
I purchase the greens from the same florist we get the flowers from. Unless it's specific, like for when we need palms. We used to have a parishioner who had some beautiful fan palms in their yard, and we would get those from her. But usually I just buy the greens. I usually get a bundle of leather and then just pieces of, bundle of leather, and then just the huck and the lemon as I think I'm going to need it. And I tend to green more than maybe some other folks. But it's all in your preference on how you like to do things and the flowers you're dealing with too.
Sarah, go ahead.
I'm fortunate enough to have a a friend who has a dollar eucalyptus tree that oft times needs trimming, and I say to her, no, I'll gladly come and trim it for you. And they make beautiful arrangements for greener, for the greenery. Really do.
Yes, and it's more of an expensive green as well. So
yes, it is.
And so that's nice. There's a senior area in Paso that has a pole along the street, and I know that when they're trimming those, we have people out, scavenging for those because it's in the parking. So And like I said earlier, the hydrangeas, I try to dip. And I usually try to put in the more fragile lilies last. Or the most fragile flowers last, and usually that's, a lily is one of them. So I got carried away. I didn't even get my lime flowers in here before I got crazy.
Fiona, go ahead.
Okay, another question, since I'm a newbie at this still.
Absolutely. I love it.
Okay, so when you're talking about putting flowers on the altar, our flowers, we normally have one big arrangement and it goes in front of the altar because our altar is solid. So if you've got flowers on the altar, where are they going and when are they going there?
This in our church, this is the altar.
Okay.
So that there's like a platform here that has this wide shelf on it, and then the Christus Rex is behind it, and then we have a step down, and then there's our altar where sometimes we do put flowers in front of it. For like, but this is where we would normally put the flowers, is where I'm doing them right here.
So there's no communion stuff where the flowers are then, right?
No.
It's at a different altar?
This is behind where we do communion. So
Okay.
our altar, the main altar where the Eucharist is set up is in front
Okay.
of us.
Okay.
And we as I said, sometimes put flowers in front, but most of the time they're back here on this ledge here.
Okay, and obviously we can't do that because that's where our choir sits. Okay, I was just trying to figure out where are these flowers on the altar going because there's no room for us.
Depends on your situation, what's gonna work. I know that we have another little shelf in the choir area that has our Madonna on the wall, and sometimes we have flowers there as well. So.
Okay, well, thank you. That clears up what was going on in my brain.
And you can see, I put that guy in not very straight, but this stem isn't very straight. So you want to eyeball it. So the stem is straight when you put it in. It's still not straight, but I've already put a hole in there. So. And as I said earlier too, I never know what I'm gonna get. I should have waited to put those hydrangeas in. Sorry about that.
Jane, go ahead.
Yeah, generally, it is not thought appropriate to put flowers directly on the altar ever. So either behind it, in front, to either side. We tend to put them to either side rather than in the center and back, but not directly on the altar. You don't want to put the flowers.
No, we don't have flowers on the altar. The only thing we have on the altar are the elements. Oh, I'm sorry, folks. This is not working out very well. Change of plans. Everything's not straight today.
Go ahead, Trisha.
I just wanted to, while Laura's busy arranging.
Oh, hi, Trisha.
Hi. While Laura's busy arranging, I wanted to talk about a tool that we use that we just learned about from a person who came onto the Altar Guild in the last year. So if you have the kind of candles that you fill with the liquid wax, and then you screw the fake follower back on, and you need to adjust the wick. We have special, just ordinary tweezers that we keep in the sacristy so that it's very easy to reach in, even if it's still burning, and raise or lower the wick with these tweezers that are kept in the sacristy in an envelope labeled tweezers for altar guild only.
And does that work?
It works wonderfully when you're trying to adjust so that all of the candles have the same size flame.
Yes.
We learned this from a gentleman who joined our altar guild.
Oh, that is, yes, because we have lots of problems with the candles and the wicks being pulled out too far or falling in or whatever. So, thank you. It's all a process. I never know what I'm going to do until I get there. So, it's very good. It'd be quite a mess on my floor here. Broken stem.
What are the red flowers that you're putting in?
Tulips. These are tulips and they continue to grow. So try to get them. When I went in, Leslie said, well, you know, they're not great, but they might work well for your draping at the end. Except I'm breaking stems like crazy, so. That's too short. When you're working with anything that's a mum in the mum family, they have kind of these little bumps on the stem. So especially if you're working in a vase arrangement with just water, if you can just kind of peel those down, that way they don't get caught on your other stems when you're, you may be putting them in and out of an arrangement. So that's helpful with that. And I was telling Leslie that we had the purple veil on the cross, and she said, well, here, you should take some purple to bring the purple from the veil in. So.
Laura, what is the solution that you're dipping the tips of the flowers in?
That's the quick dip, and that I just use that for the hydrangeas and the roses. And it's just a super hydrator is what that is. And I'm gonna have way more flowers. So if it was a typical Sunday and not a Sunday in Lent, I would be doing a second piece. I thought about getting another vase set with oasis and stuff and doing a double. And I never know sometimes. So I would do a second piece. But that's pretty much what I would. And I'm not happy about the glads, but let's see if I can fix this. And another thing you want to remember too when using the oasis is you don't want to fill the container solid with oasis. You want to make sure you have places for water at either one end or each end if you've got a long piece, because you have no way of adding any water when the oasis is just locked in there. So once that oasis dries out, it's almost impossible to get any water in there for your flowers. So
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So I didn't, because I missed part of this, because my battery died. I didn't know if you mentioned the importance of cutting the stems at an angle. Did you already say that? Okay, good.
No, that's great. It bears repeating. Yeah, you want to make sure that way the flowers can suck up the water more easily. So, anyone have any questions or comments? I think the things I was going to cover at the end, we covered in between everything. And I just had a question too for you is, excuse me, flowers that you have good success using. Are there types of flowers or kinds of flowers that you have good luck using?
And can you tell us where the tradition of not having flowers during Lent came from?
I have no idea. I don't know. I know we don't have anything on the altar traditionally here at St. James during Lent. And then during Advent, we just have greens with maybe some red berries intermixed, and then the greens that we have on the Advent wreath. And that's the decoration for Advent here.
I believe it's because it's penitent season.
I think so too. That's probably the main reason. Yeah. And these will not go to waste. When I finish, I was going to do up some small arrangements from this arrangement tomorrow, but I think I will go ahead and do it this afternoon and have it available for people to take tomorrow. So they'll find homes.
We have a hand. Go ahead. Happy Scanlon Moore.
Okay, I'm unmuted. The question was, what flowers keep well to use on the altar? And astromerias we find to be very good, and sometimes we can use them 2 weeks in a row. And something else I did in one arrangement, well, two, in fact, I took, when we were trimming our fruit trees, I used those branches and created a triangle with the bare branches before they leafed out, added some greenery, and then put roses in with tulips one time and something else, completely different color waves. And the branches, with the second week I did, well, I skipped a week in between. On the third week that the branches were in, they were starting to leaf out. Yeah. And it was very nice to do that. And it was the same structure. I almost used it a third time and I went, you know, no, we're not going to do that.
Ain't happening. Ain't happening.
No, but astromerias really are very wonderful. And if you don't touch them for 3 weeks, because you can use it off the altar too. If you don't touch them, they won't fall apart.
Well, and if I did an arrangement for my daughter-in-law, her birthday was on the 21st. And if you want a good source for flowers that are fresh and nice, is Trader Joe's. I went to Trader Joe's and got her, bundles of this and bundles of that. And I literally sat in the parking lot and put her arrangement together. But I had Alstroemeria that was closed. And that was on the 21st of February. I still have them in an arrangement at my house that are now fully opened, and it's been since the 21st. So yeah, Alstroemeria is good. Carnations, minis, standards.
Yes.
Most mums, those are all long-lasting flowers that will hold for you.
Meg, it's also nice to hear that you do things in the car on the way.
Yeah, it was interesting because they live in San Luis Obispo, which is about 40 miles. And I thought, rather than do it at home and then try to figure out the safest way to get it transported down there, I thought, I'll just go to Trader Joe's. I'm sure people thought I was weird. I had my knife and I was doing this in the back of my car. So anyway, yeah, Alstroemeria is awesome. I love it. And you can get it in so many colors. It comes in all these incredible colors.
Right.
And Costco is another good place for flowers. They last a long time when you're just buying them in bunches.
Yeah, another great idea.
And the roses at Costco are a lot less expensive, $19.99
for 2 dozen.
Yeah, that's one thing. One thing, roses are just, I worked at the shop over Valentine's Day, and I think there were 3 times what they have been in the past. Exactly. Just ridiculous. And most of them are imported from South America.
Yes, Ecuador, and yes.
Okay.
Your arrangement is beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think that's all I have, Sarah, unless there are other questions. And I will put in the chat my email. So if you have questions or want to share something else, I'll be happy to talk with you about that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It's beautiful. See, we made the ordinary extraordinary.
Thank you.
Now, Happy, do you have another question? I see you still have your hand up. Okay. Very good. So it's my intent to have another one of these seminars in the fall. And I would love to hear from you. You don't have to say right now, but you can email me. I'm sure you all have my email address by now. If you could email me with any ideas, topics that you would like to hear about, so that we can prepare for another seminar that is of value to you. I love the topics that we have here. And I hope you all learned from both presentations. And that would be a wonderful, and anything that you would like to say about the seminar, how we can improve it. Thanks to Deacon Jen for jumping in as the technician. Our technician that we had lined up was unavailable, as it turned out. And so I have many thanks for Deacon Jen for the technical part of this. And so, yes, please give me your comments if you felt it was valuable, how we can improve it, any topics that you would like to hear about in the fall. And I will also increase the number of people that can attend, because I had to turn away so many because we only have a limit. And get the information out to you sooner, because I know some of the comments that I received was, well, I only got this 2 weeks ago, and that's not soon enough for me to fit it into my schedule. So I will do that and make sure to correspond with the diocesan communicators. And thanks to Jenny Guzman for putting together that directory for us, for the Province 8 representatives, so that we have that as a resource. Anyway, I think now it's 2:50. Boy, we're right on time. We are. So I'm going to ask Deacon Jen to close us out with a prayer.
Thank you. So this is a blessing again from the same book I used before, and it's a blessing for work. Let us pray. May the light of your soul bless your work with love and warmth of heart. May you see in what you do the beauty of your soul. May the sacredness of your work bring light and renewal to those who work with you and to those who see and receive your work. May your work never exhaust you. May it release well springs of refreshment, inspiration, and excitement. May you never become lost in bland absences. May the day never burden. May dawn find hope in your heart, approaching your new day with dreams, possibilities, and promises. May evening find you gracious and fulfilled. May you go into the night blessed, sheltered, and protected. May your soul calm, console, and renew you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everyone.